Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War Online commentary. In this particular ladder battle, I will be playing the Dwarves, led by the High King Thorgrim, and I'm going to be facing off against a Vampire Count's opponent. So just a quick rundown of my army composition. I have a front line of Longbeards, so a lot of people often ask me, why do you get these guys? They're shielded, and that's not really pertinent against the Vampire Counts. But in all honesty, I really like the fact that they have that higher melee defense. They start with 47, I believe, whereas the Great Weapon version starts with 35. So I feel like that usually pays off for me because I like to use my front line primarily to just absorb the shock and kind of last longer. So my Slayers and Hammers and my heroic units can really do the serious damage. So I like to have these guys in the front line, and on top of that, they do have charged defense against large foes. And Vampire Counts usually bring a lot. And you can see back there he has Crypt Horrors, he has a Zombie Dragon, he has a Black Coach over there. So a lot of good value out of that, in my opinion. In the secondary line, I have a Thane with potions, always an essential when you're playing as the Dwarves. And I have High King Thorgrim here, Grudgebearer. So I actually like him a lot against Vampire Counts because he does do magic damage. If you guys take a look, you can see that little blue kind of teal eye next to his melee attack stats. That means he does magic damage, and against vampires who do tend to bring ethereal units, not often. I don't think it's as popular as it once was, but regardless, it's still a safe bet. And even with that aside, he gives huge combat stats. You can look at the combat stats of my nearby troops, and these hammers are up in the 60s on their melee attack, and he does give a lot of buffs to your troops with his various augmentations, especially in conjunction with the Runesmith, who's lurking over there somewhere. Then I have an additional group of Longbeards here who are backing up these Quarrelers here. I have Hammers in the back, so these guys are great against Graveguard and any of those kind of more sturdy Vampire Count units. And regardless of whether or not they're hitting an armored unit, they still hit like trucks and are good at cutting through pretty much anything. So. And again, against Vampire Counts, they usually do bring a lot of monstrous units. So I feel like Slayers are a very good investment against the Vampire Counts. So I have two groups of those. Here's the High King, as I was telling you guys earlier, and then, of course, the Runesmith. So he has all of the upgrades except for the missile defense, because, again, that is not going to be pertinent against the Vampire Counts. So my opponent, he has a nice Vampire Count army here with a lot of zombies. So in the front line, he has several rows of zombies. And again, they only cost 150, so why not? And they are pretty good fodder against the Dwarves, in my opinion. Although the shielded skeletons I'm a little bit more of a fan of. I do like the fact that they can take a little more missile fire, but regardless, the zombies, they do their part. In the secondary line, he has Graveguard, just armored, shielded, anti-infantry. Definitely a good choice. Again, they don't have armor piercing, so they're not going to really cut through the Dwarves that efficiently, but they are going to be able to take missile fire, and they do have pretty good defensive stats, so they'll last a while in there and allow these Crypt Horrors to really push through. So several groups of Graveguards here. Then he does have Graveguards with great weapons in the back, which is a good choice, it looks like, because they'll be able to reap the benefit of that armor piercing, as almost all Dwarvish infantry are armored. So, of course, the Slayers aren't, but, they do their best. And then he's got Crypt Horrors back here. He has a Vampire Lord on a Zombie Dragon. So it looks like he has the Invocation of Nehek, Gaze of Nagash, and Raised Dead. So interesting. I'm personally not a fan of Raised Dead. I feel like it's pretty mediocre for the Winds of Magic, but regardless, it's good at some, like if he flies over my missile infantry and is able to summon zombies right on top of my Quarrelers, that's pretty good. So, and of course he has this Black Coach over here, another questionable unit, but regardless, it's very fun and it looks very cool. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I like to take it to people when I play the Dwarves. I don't like to sit because I feel that allows your opponent to really kind of get the position they want on you. So I like to put a little pressure and march towards my opponent, even if they're playing Vampire Counts. Of course, if I had Siege, it would be a different story, but regardless, I don't like Siege against the Counts because they have so many flying units, and if they bring Vargeist or Fellbats even, they can shut down, a 1,200 gold investment just with a group of Fellbats. So personally, I don't like to do that. So I'm just advancing my front line. Most of my troops are moving up, and I'm keeping my Slayers back a little ways. I like to keep them in the back line. And basically, I'm just going to see where he sends these, where are those guys? The Crypt Horrors over there. And wherever those Crypt Horrors go, these Slayers will be waiting for them and be ready to meet them. So that's definitely the way you want to play that, in my opinion. So I move these Quarrelers up just a little further, and I'm going to start shooting. And I noticed that he did have his Necromancer coming up, and so he has a Necromancer and a Vampire Lord. I guess I missed that Necromancer back there, but I thought he was going to come and do like a Winds of Death thing down my front line, so I was a little nervous about that. So I started shifting. You guys will see here in a moment. I shift my front line up because I have been really decimated by that in the past, but it turns out he didn't even have that ability. So, I guess I was acting preemptively there regardless. But he's flying around, kind of putting a little pressure on my back line, making me a little uncomfortable. So I get my Slayers nearby, just, on standby, and I start shooting at him with my Quarrelers. So they're going to get a little bit of value out of that, but and he has a massive infantry army. Like, this is if you look at just the scope of the armies, this army could seriously just envelop me. But regardless, the Dwarvish infantry, especially with the High King Thorgrim, they're going to be really, really cost effective. Even these, Longbeards, once High King gets a little closer to them with the Runesmith, they're going to be really, really sturdy and have really good combat stats with that +8 attack that Thorgrim gives as well. So I definitely can't complain there. So basically at this point, we're just kind of waiting for the inevitable showdown. And I accidentally sent my Runesmith out a little bit too far. So he's going to have to, run from these zombies here. It's kind of like an episode of The Walking Dead. He's waddling away. He should definitely be running because those guys are coming pretty quick. And you don't want him to get tied up there. So these zombies are starting to take some serious fire down the line, but they're going to be good fodder. I mean, it's going to take Longbeards, who don't have the highest combat stats, a while to cut through them. And unfortunately for him, he sends these Cryptors in first. Definitely should have sent the zombies in first, but these guys are ready to absorb the charge that they're going to bring and are going to be very happy. And it looks like his charge faltered there a little bit. So I send in that Thane because, again, wherever he's focusing his strength, I need to match with strength. So I'm sending that Thane to kind of plug up that line there. And you can see these Longbeards, even though they're taking charges, I mean, they're in really good health and they're very sturdy. So I pulled my auxiliary Longbeards because he has a ton of forces here. So I knew that I needed to kind of plug this up. So these guys will do a pretty good job at covering the flank over here on the west side. And the Quarrelers are just mainly taking shots at these Cryptors right now. And of course, I got the Slayers engaged here, and they're doing a pretty good job. It's a pretty gnarly battle in here, but regardless, the Slayers are engaged on those Cryptors, which is exactly what you want. So I definitely cannot complain. And then at the same time, now that I felt, I had it relatively secured over here, it was mostly zombies and kind of fodder units. So I got my Quarrelers just shooting these Cryptors in the face. And I realized that, he might want to do something with this Vampire Lord here. So I pulled the Slayers over here to guard these Quarrelers, who these Slayers, if they can get their hands on that Vampire Lord, will absolutely devastate him. So at the same time, I do pull my hammers around, and I wanted to pressure this flank to not only push a hit to their leadership, but they're going to be very cost effective. Not against these zombies per se, but once they're able to get through to these Graveguards and Cryptors, they're going to absolutely collapse this flank over here. So no complaints. So as I predicted, my opponent did land his Vampire Lord here. I felt he definitely was taking a lot of damage from these Quarrelers on his important units over here. So not a terrible choice, but again, with the Slayers there, that is not a good idea. They will absolutely destroy this Vampire Lord. And he used a Gaze of Nagash. I believe he was targeting Thorgrim, but it did not make great contact, so I was very happy about that. But I fan out my two Quarrelers here on either side, and the Slayers are able to tie him up, and now these Quarrelers are it's just a shooting gallery here. They're definitely just teeing off on this guy, and it's not going to end well for this Vampire Lord. He's just getting taken out. These anti-large Slayers just put him in his place and taught him that the Quarrelers are not to be messed with. So things went well for me. Over here, it's kind of just mostly, these Graveguards with great weapons, and they're not doing that great, to be honest. These zombies are not being cost effective. You can see they're just trudging in one at a time and kind of just getting cut down. You can see the piles are starting to form here. Regardless, in the center, it's a little more dicey. He still does have a lot of Cryptors left. He has a fair amount of Graveguards, but it's kind of clustered. To be honest, I think he should have split his army up because you can see there's a lot of combat ineffectiveness back here. What I mean by that is there's troops just kind of standing around because it's such a mishmash here. Whereas if he had sent them up and around and pulled this group of Graveguard instead of just, selecting all and pathing, it's just my 2 cents though. So he does have this black coach that is it did some laps through my Quarrelers here and did a little bit of damage, but regardless, I'm just going to have my Slayers chase it while my Quarrelers just tee off on it. So these Quarrelers are pretty much just going to be firing at this black coach because if that black coach were to get a nice ride through my back line, that could be pretty devastating if it disrupted my ranks, allowed his troops to penetrate a little more. But regardless, things are going pretty well in here. I'm keeping the High King back just a little bit. I don't want him to get surrounded. The Slayers are in here. This Runesmith is fighting. It's going quite well, and of course these hammers are just devastating this flank. You can see almost no losses on the ground for the hammers, and they're just hammering through these Graveguard. Definitely not a good matchup. They have armor piercing and an exponentially higher attack than these guys, so things are definitely looking good for me right now. And at that point, the black coach did commit, so I was able to commit the Slayers as well. They get a decent little surround here, and they're going to be able to take that thing out pretty quick. And those Quarrelers are also just all focus firing it because this was pretty much his only valuable unit he had left. He did still have a Necromancer back here who had been using Invocation to Heck and other things like that, but he's still not having a good day by any means. So it's definitely a very grindy battle to say the least. So I'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit through it, but for the most part, that black coach is just getting focused down, and he did retreat it off the battlefield, but those Quarrelers are just going to stick on it, keep it from generating a lot of value. And the Slayers at this point, they don't have too many great targets left other than this Cryptor group here, but regardless, they were so low, I figured I would just use them to protect this kind of focal point between the two flanks here. So pretty much at this point, almost all of his troops had crumbled. Losing the Vampire Lord was really, really tough, and the Slayers are definitely great for guarding your rear units because they're fast for dwarves and they can react to pertinent threats. So definitely was a fun one. Those hammers just generated huge value. You guys will see here in a moment. So Thorgrim got in there, but you got to keep in mind a lot of the stats on this game are going to be padded because he had so many zombies, so it's not necessarily a true reflection. Regardless, Thorgrim did quite well. I mean, these Longbeards, they definitely cut through zombies because with the joint buffs of Thorgrim, as well as the Runesmith, they're going to do very, very good work for you. And of course, these hammers, they did kill some zombies, but a lot of those kills were on Graveguard and other pertinent units. And of course, the Quarrelers, can't say enough about how well they did at taking out that Vampire Lord. So definitely a good game to Kanatati. It was definitely a tough matchup, when losing that Vampire Lord early, and also the Black Coach is a little bit of a risky investment in my opinion. But again, good game. Look forward to seeing you again on Ladder, and thank you guys for watching. More content coming soon, and I'm really looking forward to this next DLC coming up here on September 1st. So I'll be doing a lot of multiplayer battles and covering some of the content with a multiplayer focus, as that's all I really do. I don't play the campaign too much, but perhaps I'll get started on it. So thanks again, guys, and have an excellent night. Take care.